Let's see. Beating Nadal, Djokovic or Federer on any given day is a remarkable feat for any tennis player. But defeating all three of them in consecutive rounds in a single tournament, now that's just insane. David Nalbandian caught the tennis world by storm when he won the Madrid Masters in 2007, beating the Big Three in the process. That was the first and last occurrence of this otherwise unthinkable event. With very few titles to show for it, Nalbandian's career went almost unnoticed in the grand scheme of things. But how good was David Nalbandian really? David Nalbandian turned pro in 2000 at the age of 18. Before that, he'd had a successful junior career, where he reached world number 3 and won the 1998 US Open Boys Singles title, beating a junior Roger Federer. Needless to say, that's as promising as tennis careers go. Nalbandian soon made his way into the big tennis stages and started drawing attention to an enormous potential waiting to be unleashed. He ended his first professional year in the top 50, which is more than you can say about a lot of tennis legends. In 2002, he reached the Wimbledon final, where he lost to then world number 1 Lleyton Hewitt. Things were looking up, and Nalbandian seemed to be a man on a mission, to be one of tennis greats for a generation to come. And if it weren't painfully true, no one would have possibly thought that Nalbandian was never to win a Grand Slam or even reach another final ever again. Early in his career, Nalbandian displayed a surreal level of tennis that only got better in the following years. On his best day, he could beat absolutely anyone, which was repeatedly shown beyond doubt. Even the very best often found themselves in trouble facing Nalbandian. Roger Federer's biggest early career rival, for instance, was none other than Nalbandian. The Argentinian won the first 5 of their meetings, including 2 Grand Slam matches. Even in the midst of Federer's domination, Nalbandian proved to be a very troublesome opponent. That's the least you can call someone who managed to defeat a prime Federer a couple of times. But tennis is often a cruel sport. Nalbandian's immense talent got him far fewer career titles and records than anyone expected. At many points during his career, Nalbandian totally stole the show and seemed on the verge of dominating tennis for years. Yet that breakthrough never really happened, at least not in a way that could do him justice. Nalbandian's career was one of tennis's greatest disappointments, but it was still impressive on so many levels. So let's delve into Nalbandian's game and explore just how good he actually was. There's a lot to remember David Nalbandian with. He was one of the most gifted tennis players who had all it takes to compete at the very highest level. For the most avid tennis fans, Nalbandian is a great watch. On par with the likes of Federer, Nalbandian captivates you with his elegant, varied, and creative play. He is an all-court player with outstanding technique and adaptability. A lot of his technical prowess is rendered even more effective thanks to his athleticism. His movement is very light and swift, allowing him to maintain remarkable balance on every shot. As he hits the ball, he keeps a light leg bounce, allowing more control of the ball's direction, as well as a faster recovery movement. Now, Nalbandian's technique is simply out of the world. His shots are beautifully struck and perfectly executed. Light movement gives him more time to position himself and prepare for the next shot. This early preparation allows him to hit clean and powerful ground strokes that will land exactly where he wants them to, given the chance. For that to work, Nalbandian always sought to dictate the rhythm of play. He's patient and comfortable with long exchanges where he would try to hit deep cross-court shots and create space, before finishing off with a blistering winner. And that's where Nalbandian's tactical genius comes into play. He is so good at reading the game, managing the point, and varying his shots to get the better of his opponent. He often mixes up his shots with well-paced slices and drop shots, and is also pretty good at the net, despite being a baseline player for the most part. Arguably, Nalbandian's best tactical play is his spinning short-angle shots that swing out of court and leave a wide-open space. That is, if they don't end up as winners. What's even more impressive is his ability to find the sweetest acute angle from a difficult defensive position. Finding those tight angles from 40 feet or so behind the net and hitting the ball at very low trajectories is incredibly difficult, yet he made it look so easy. Nalbandian was a great all-round player. He had a decent serve, though not quite as dominating as many top players, in addition to an impeccable return of serve, aided by great reflexes. But Nalbandian's trademark two-handed backhand is nothing short of formidable, earning a special place among tennis's greatest shots. This guy could do anything with it, especially his signature jumping backhand and terrific backhand lob, both from defensive and offensive positions. He used a unique backhand grip, a blend of semi-western left-hand grip and an eastern right-hand grip. This particularly helps with the topspin, which is one of Nalbandian's strengths, but allows him to hit flat balls just as powerfully. His efficient leg movement and terrific balance skills help him hit clinical backhand strokes from any stance, be they low or high. He pulls off the shot marvelously, following a loose and relaxed forward swing, hitting the ball from behind and pushing it upwards, which generates a tremendous amount of power and topspin. Nalbandian's backhand was one of the biggest weapons of choice in his career. One of his masterful backhand displays was against the left-handed Rafael Nadal in Madrid and Paris Masters 2007, where he kept up exquisitely with Nadal's insane forehand topspin, often hit to Nalbandian's left-hand side. When it comes to technique, it's hard to identify a single weakness in Nalbandian's game. Add to that his impressive tactical skills, and you have all the ingredients for a truly great player. However, Nalbandian's style of play is by no means easy to sustain for a whole game, let alone an entire career. It requires a lot of endurance, conditioning, and mental toughness. Nalbandian's style was impressive but didn't get him that many cheap points. He had to work for them and maintain a solid rhythm throughout the match. True, he managed to do that on plenty of occasions and against the very best of players. Yes, he had miraculous runs in big tournaments and got through impossible draws, but he was just as known for exiting tournaments very early on, to the surprise of everyone. His lack of consistency and less than ideal fitness and mental strength sadly kept him from opening the gates of glory too many times. As gifted as Federer, Nadal and Djokovic were, Nalbandian had enough technique to match up to them on any given day. But without the exceptional physical and mental qualities of the big three, Nalbandian fell short of sustained success. He did, however, broke ground and gave the tennis world a glimpse of a colossal tennis superstar who knew how to beat the unbeatable. Nalbandian's records are nowhere near the top players of his generation, but he had a respectable career and treated tennis fans to memorable moments of pure splendor and greatness. Nalbandian won a total of 11 singles titles in his career and reached 13 more finals, which isn't a very lucky ratio. Although this is not a bad record, it is criminally low for a man with his talent. Nalbandian's first career breakthrough was reaching the 2002 Wimbledon final. He lost to Hewitt in straight sets, but showcased incredible talent throughout the tournament. Little did anyone think that he'll never top that or even reach a major final again. In his career, Nalbandian had some great runs on Grand Slams, especially early on in his career. Between 2002 and 2006 alone, he played 10 quarterfinals, 5 semifinals, and just the one final. By 2006, he had reached the semifinals of all 4 Grand Slams and remains in a fairly exclusive club of only 16 people in the Open era to achieve that, which is not a lot, really, considering that there are over 50 Open era Grand Slam champions. During those years, Nalbandian didn't have much luck in Grand Slams, but you could see he was so close. However, since his 2006 French Open semi-final loss to Federer, every Grand Slam Nalbandian played was just another disappointment. Not once was he able to get past the 4th round in a Grand Slam, and that's just unfair, especially knowing that the peak of his tennis brilliance had yet to come. In 2005, Nalbandian had a relatively good year. He didn't have much luck winning titles except for the Munich Open, but he did reach 4 Grand Slam quarterfinals. While it's nothing to write home about, he managed to book a spot in the ATP Masters Cup, although barely. Now, despite Nalbandian's skills, nobody would have bet their money on him to win the title. He'd only won 3 low-tier tournaments up to this point in his career, and earlier in 2007, he dropped out of the top 20 for the first time in 4 years. In the Masters Cup, he had to compete with very tough players, including a prime Federer, who had won 6 of the last 10 Grand Slams and was dominating tennis like never before. Nalbandian had to face the Swiss legend in the opening round-robin game, which was far from ideal. He did play incredible tennis and gave Federer a really hard time, but Federer prevailed in 2-1. Nalbandian had to defeat Guillermo Coria and Ivan Lubicic for a place in the semi-finals, and that he did in straight sets. In the semi-finals, Nalbandian stormed past Nikolay Davydenko with an impressive 6-love, 7-5 win, but had to compete with a frightening Federer who had just handed a double bagel to Gaston Gaudio and achieved a historic 35-match winning streak. The highly anticipated season finale lived up to everyone's great expectations. The Argentinian offered a career worth of sheer brilliance in an epic 5-setter against the very best player on the planet at the time. Coming from 2 tie-break sets down, including a devastating 13-11 loss in the second set tie-break, Nalbandian displayed a tremendous amount of mental strength and, against all odds, pulled one of the greatest comebacks in tennis. He dominated the 2 following sets, 6-1, 6-2, and played as though his life depended on it in the final set, before winning it on a tiebreak. A fitting end to a 4-hour, 33-minute tennis masterclass. Without a doubt, that was the highlight of my career, is how Nalbandian later reflected on that marvelous victory. The 2005 Masters Cup has remained the biggest of his 11 titles and showed just how brilliant a player he is. Following his terrific Masters Cup performance, Nalbandian failed to break new ground until late 2007. What he was about to achieve in the last two Masters tournaments of the season was beyond belief. If only for a few weeks, there was a single greatest player in the world at the time, and his name was David Nalbandian. Entering the Madrid Masters, Nalbandian was faced with a tough draw. He struggled to get past Arnaud Clement and Thomas Berdych before he impressively beat his fellow countryman Juan Martín del Potro in 2 comfortable sets. He was technically halfway there, but in reality, he had a painfully long way to go. But to everyone's amazement, Nalbandian utterly destroyed Rafael Nadal 6-1, 6-2 in the quarterfinals, defeated Novak Djokovic in the semi in straight sets, and stunned Roger Federer in the final, coming back from a 6-1 set down. There was his long-awaited Masters title, claimed with a legendary Big Three sweep worthy of the history books. Nalbandian became the first and forever will be the only tennis player to beat Nadal, Djokovic and Federer in a single tournament. And if that was not enough, he went on to win a second consecutive Masters title, once again beating both Federer and Nadal along the way. He defeated the Swiss in the third round in straight sets before crushing the Spaniard 6-4, 6-love in the final. This was by far the greatest stretch of Nalbandian's career. Madrid and Paris remained his only Masters titles. He was close to defending his Paris title the following year, but lost a tightly contested final against Jo-Wilfried Tsonga. Other than that, he never managed to reproduce the same form as in those magical Madrid and Paris weeks. Nalbandian retired in 2013 at the age of 31, having disputed 24 singles finals and won 11 titles. The 2005 Masters Cup and the 2007 Madrid and Paris Masters are his 3 biggest and most deserving titles. He reached the final in his Wimbledon debut and lost 4 Masters finals in Canada, Rome, Madrid and Paris. As for team competition, he represented Argentina in Davis Cup and led his fellow countrymen to 3 finals where they lost to Russia and twice to Spain. Nalbandian had some intense rivalries, none of which were one-sided. He had 5 rivals with whom he played at least 10 games. He played Federer 19 times, more than any other player, but the Swiss led their head-to-head by a slight margin, 11-8. David Ferrer also led 9-5. Nalbandian had a head-to-head advantage against Jarko Nieminen, Nikolai Davydenko and Rainer Schüttler. Besides Tommy Haas, who won all of his 5 games against Nalbandian, very few felt comfortable having Nalbandian as their opponent. When all is said and done, David Nalbandian left a lasting mark on men's tennis, not so much for breaking records and dominating the sport, but for his several moments of pure magic that astounded the tennis world. Overall, he failed to claim tennis's ultimate rewards, namely a Grand Slam or a world #1 ranking. Looking merely at his records, you'd think of him as nothing more than a good player. What little he did achieve, however, gave us a glimpse of unbridled greatness that overshadowed that of the world's best. For that, he is a true enigma of the sport. He offered us some of the greatest tennis performances of all time, playing tennis from the gods. But whether it was bad luck, injuries, or lack of focus, there was always something that kept him from sustaining his very best level. For that, he is one of the sport's biggest underachievers, reasonably seen by many as one of the greatest players to not win a slam. How good was Nalbandian? Well, he could be, and on a good day, was actually as good can be. Good